Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
You can read about dragons, but meeting them is a completely different thing.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we are going to be diversifying our dragon portfolio.
Yes.
So there have been numerous dragons added to D&D throughout the editions that don't fall into the major type groups. So we already covered the 5 primary chromatics, the 5 primary gems, and the 5 primary metallics. So today we're going to start talking about some of the ones that were added in older editions that don't neatly fall into those categories, or at least are not included in the core of those categories. And the ones that we're going to talk about today are ones that have not made it to 5th edition.
Right.
So these are all dragons that you're not going to find in official published 5th edition books.
So in the murky dawn of 2nd edition and even 3rd edition, it was a time before the internet. And so you had these things called periodicals and magazines and newsletters that were sent out once a month or twice a month or however often. And so things like Dragon Magazine was among these. Again, as difficult as you can imagine, coming up with new content once a month to fill out a 30, 40, 50 page magazine each month could be a bit of a task. And so a lot of these dragons popped up in these periodicals and they were official, but they never got codified into an actual D&D text. And so, like I said, kind of like what the Unearthed Arcana is today, where it's kind of like that sort of legit but not legit type thing. So, I mean, again, these are, because they were in Dragon Magazine, they are official D&D properties, but they never made it mainstream.
I mean, all of these dragons that we're going to be talking about today, almost all of them are in the 2nd edition monster manual.
Oh, okay.
There are a couple that were in some supplemental stuff later on in 2nd edition. They had some books called Monstrous Compendium Annual Volumes 1 through 4.
Is that for 2nd edition?
Yes.
Okay.
They were usually tied to an adventure module.
Okay.
So there are a couple of these. I think the Fang Dragon that we're going to be getting to later on. That was the one that James really wanted to be in today's episode.
And
the Fang Dragon was in one of those compendia.
Okay, yeah. And I know it was in a 3rd edition one as well.
Yes, it was in the Draconomicon.
Was it actually in the Draconomicon?
Yes,
I saw it was in a...
It was also in the Monsters of Faerun book.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. So it was in both of those books. And I think the Monsters of Faerun is technically the 3.5 version, and the Draconomicon is the 3.0 version.
That might make sense. I started playing after 3.5, but people were still pulling a lot of 3.0 in, kind of like people would be doing with 5th and 2025.
Right. So because we have more dragons than what we would normally have for one of these episodes, I don't have anything just generic dragon chatter before we get started. I think we should just go ahead and dive straight into this and get to all of this juicy draconic goodness.
I like it.
Okay, so the first one, and the one that I really wanted, is going to be the Mercury Dragon or the Quicksilver Dragon.
I do love this dragon as well, yes.
Yeah. This one, I could have sworn that it was in the book as a Quicksilver Dragon. I would have sworn up, down, and sideways until I started taking notes for this episode, and I couldn't find it called a Quicksilver Dragon anywhere.
You'd think, that'd be a great name, a Quicksilver Dragon. It would sound amazing.
I think I'm getting that from Magic the Gathering. I'm pretty sure there's a Quicksilver Dragon or a Quicksilver Drake magic card.
Okay, that would make sense.
I think that's where I'm getting it from, which, to be fair, Magic the Gathering was created by James Garfield as a thing for them to do after they wrapped up their D&D session for the day.
Gotcha. I was unaware of that.
Yes, that is exactly why Alpha, Beta, and Revised have such a strong D&D fantasy feel to them. It's because he made the game as a way to pass the time while they were waiting for people to show up for the session and, to kill time if the session finished up early.
I was gonna say someone like crit the BBEG and like, okay, well, I ran out of stuff for you guys to do. That combat was supposed to take about
Like,
4 hours.
mom's not
So
come pick me up for another 45 minutes.
okay, fine. I cast a land. I play a spider.
Yeah. Anyway, so Mercury dragons are
Mercurial.
they are mercurial. They are quite mercurial. Um, they are chaotic good default alignment. Emphasis on chaotic.
Yes.
They're full of whimsy. They are full of unpredictability. They are full of impulsiveness.
Yeah.
They are also substantially smaller than most of the other dragons per size category. The great worms only get up to about 90 to 95 feet long from tip to tail, whereas most of the other dragons you're looking at somewhere in the 120 to 140 foot range. So they're about 75% the size
Okay.
of most of the other dragons.
So I mean, they're a little bit bigger than a white, but not by a lot.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Of course, they speak Draconic because that is the language of dragons, but they speak so quickly. They are constantly on a sugar rush. They speak so quickly that even if you speak Draconic, there is a 25% chance that you will not be able to understand what they're saying.
Now, see, you describe them as being on a sugar high. When I read about the Mercury Dragons, I see them as either someone with ADHD and or bipolar disorder because they do run so quick and their moods can shift so
Yeah,
rapidly.
I don't know
They're
about
definitely neurospicy.
yes, but I don't know about bipolar because I don't see the depression side. I only see the mania side.
They all, again, it depends on how you want to take that. So, one of the big things with the lore is a lot of their personality depends on their surroundings. And while they may have that mania, I would say that depression where they become that withdrawn, antisocial to the point where like they're physically repelling people from their territory because they just don't want to people today.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah,
I mean, maybe not bipolar, but they definitely like get overstimulated and be like, nope, I'm done. Go the hell
yeah.
away.
They are definitely the hyperactive part of the ADHD.
Yes.
Yeah. So they are reflective because they're Mercury, they have that sheen to them. And so they are able to actually shape their bodies to reflect and concentrate light around them. And their breath weapon is basically a laser beam. They're far and they're
Yes.
lasers.
That's awesome.
So it's just a beam of radiant light. In the older editions, it's listed as fire damage, but I would absolutely call this radiant damage if I
Yeah,
were
I would
doing
too.
this in my table. But the light is actually intense enough to ignite flammable materials. So it is a full on death ray.
It's Archimedes. Oh, what was it? It's not the
Yeah,
shield,
Archimedes
but
death ray.
yeah, Archimedes Death Ray. Yeah, absolutely.
And instead of having a wing buffet like most dragons do, they're able to use their wings to concentrate the light around them and focus it into a beam so they can either use it as an offensive weapon to blind creatures that are caught in it, or they can choose to make it slightly less intense and basically just use it as a flashlight.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
And so they are inherently immune to fire,
Makes sense.
and they are immune to all forms of blindness, all forms of magical blindness.
That's kind of cool. I like that a lot.
And because in second edition they have a higher than normal for dragons magic resistance score, I would personally say that we take the spell reflection ability from the Tarask and
Ooh,
we put it on them to give them a chance to do spell reflection.
I like that. The other thing I'd want to add, and this is pure trope, but again, summoning the mercurial liquid metal form of the T1000 from the Terminator series, I would almost want to make these immune to crit damage, just to kind of get that fluid and metallic kind of feel with them.
So, because you bring up the T1000, I do have to add that in third edition, they gave them a vulnerability to cold,
Yes.
a la T1000 from
Yeah.
Terminator 2.
You almost have to.
And so I would absolutely say yes to giving them immunity to critical hits unless they get hit with cold damage.
Oh,
And
yes.
then they are susceptible to critical hits for one turn, one
Okay.
full round.
I like that. kind of like the trolls, where if you do not kill them with fire or an explosion, they'll regenerate.
Fire or acid, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the vulnerability to criticals when you hit with cold damage for a round would be thematically correct and a lot of fun.
So one of the things that really made them stand out from the other dragons in these older editions is that they had access by default to cleric spells as well as wizard spells for their inherent spellcasting abilities,
Iconic deities.
specifically from the luck and sun domains
Ooh.
in 3rd edition, which would be the trickster and light domains in 5th edition.
And again, that trickster vibe totally fits with this. Again, they are fully embracing that chaotic feel.
Mm-hmm.
They do things on mood and whimsy. So it is your interaction with that Mercury Dragon today is not your interaction with that Mercury Dragon tomorrow, because the sun may be in the wrong place, or the bird song might be too loud, or you know what, that flower is just absolutely perfect and it's happy, or it found a lucky coin and everyone's lucky today. So yeah, no, I do like that trickster vibe to it.
Yeah. So they don't really have a preferred terrain in their listings. They are listed as being more of a solitary dragon. The only thing that they have is temperate and subtropical mountains.
Yeah, I was reading like base in the mountains near coastlines. And so again, growing up on the West Coast, I immediately think of Cambria, where you've got the pine forest that runs right up to the beach, and that's where all the elephant seals come and rut, which again would make sense. I mean, that would kind of fit. So again, too, where you have Mercury issues with land and nature, running off near estuaries would make sense too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could work.
Actually, you know what? I think I would like a Mercury Dragon in an estuary, especially if there was some sort of city or industry trying to form nearby. I think that would fit. Again, you've got that kind of mix of saltwater and freshwater, and then you've got the edge of urban and wild nature. It would obviously be a very kind of miffed about encroachment, but I think it would make sense for a Mercury Dragon to be there.
And, you know, we often think about these sort of pristine natural locations where these dragons want to be. What if instead we're looking at something like an industrial revolution, you know, the age of industry sort of town, and they're holding up downstream of that?
Yeah.
Because, like, the iridescent sheen of the waste on the
Oh,
river
no, I
is
like that.
just something that they just love the look of.
I like that. And that's another thing with these dragons too, personality wise. Their treasure, they do like coins, they do like crafted things that civilization make. But unlike other dragons, it's not a particular type. It's just kind of whatever catches their interest at that exact moment.
Yeah.
So I could totally see like a Mercury dragon building a lair like in a landfill or a trash heap.
Yeah.
And that's its area.
And that does tie into one of the aspects that is mentioned in the 2nd edition entry, which is that while their bites are not venomous, their flesh is highly poisonous
That makes sense.
because of mercury.
Yeah.
And I recently saw a video about, I can't remember her name, but she was a researcher that was working on heavy metals research, and she is the reason why the safety protocols surrounding using certain mercury compounds have changed, because she was just, I think it was dimethyl mercury,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
she was using the industry standard, which would be just latex gloves.
Oh God.
when she was, I think this was the mid 90s.
Okay.
And so she had a little splash, like a little drop of dimethyl mercury land on her glove. And so she did all of the proper cleanup procedures of, you know, properly removing the
Degloving and
gloves
yeah.
and washing your hands and doing all of that. But what they didn't know was that dimethyl mercury basically just passed straight through that latex glove.
Yeah, he goes sloop.
It just slooped straight through that latex glove, straight into her hand. And what dimethyl mercury does when it gets in your system is it rips sulfur atoms out of cells,
Yeah.
which sulfur is one of the primary compounds of nerve cells.
Yep.
And so basically, she had no symptoms for the first 5 months or so.
Oh God.
And then basically within the next 5 months, her entire nervous system just rotted away from the inside.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. Mercury is some and it doesn't go away. I know I've told Ian about this several times before, but when I worked at my junior college, I worked in the stockroom, and the person that was the head of the stockroom before I worked there, he was weird. Apparently, he had some stuff going on and was very politely asked not to return after he threatened the head of the chemistry department and was found with weapons in his vehicle. But after this, we were going through and we found that he had this weird fascination with collecting mercury. Broken thermometers, broken barometers. He was trying to make homemade barometers. We found mercury stashed all over the stock room. In the cleanup, I think we found over 50 pounds of just liquid elemental
Phew,
mercury.
that's a lot
But
of mercury.
there was, and there was one cabinet where we had tons of it, and we had to sprinkle. I forget what it was, but it was the stuff that's going to help absorb and pull down the mercury vapors. But we had to pour that stuff down, seal the cabinet doors, tape them up to make them airtight, and then we had to put a label on that. It wasn't to be opened for 3 years before it
Jeez.
was safe to open again. Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
So mercury dragons, nice and fun.
Yeah.
Don't lick that dragon.
There's one last little bit that I wanted to touch on before we move on, and that is an interesting word choice in the second edition entry because it doesn't talk about clutches of eggs.
Okay.
It specifically, and when it's talking about their mating habits, it calls them freewheeling, fun-loving, and generally irresponsible.
Oh my.
But that once a female Mercury dragon becomes impregnated,
Oh.
then basically the male's paternity instincts get switched on and they just become very protective, very supportive parents for their offspring. But that, to me, using impregnated rather than talking about a clutch of eggs, suggests to me that Mercury dragons are like certain snake species like boas that give birth to live young.
Ooh, I like it.
So that would be one thing that would make them very different from the other dragons that we've talked about. Because so far, all of the dragons we've talked about lay eggs.
Oh my. I know you have a daughter. You've experienced the mood swings of a bearing woman, we will say, a pregnant lady. Imagine the temperament of a flying and irritable brood mother Mercury dragon. That could be terrifying.
Well, see, pregnant women are not necessarily irritable. They are just prone to unexpected and very extreme mood swings.
Yes.
So they're not necessarily irritable,
Okay.
but they can go from really happy to really sad to really angry very quickly.
Yes.
And given how quickly a Mercury dragon goes,
Kind of fits.
you're talking about that on, this is basically on amphetamines.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You're talking about the drop of a hat.
Yeah. A Mad Hat.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the Mercury Dragon. Let's go ahead. I'm going to jump down my notes here a little bit. We're going to go ahead and talk about Fang Dragons because that's
Yes.
the one that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
They're the other smaller dragon species that's on our list for today.
Yeah. So these are kind of fun. There are certain aspects of these that I really like. So these are fang dragons, also known as gray dragons. They're going to be found in like clouds and mists. I'm thinking like, again, growing up in California, the Thule fog, where it's just that it's thick, it surrounds, it's impervious. The one thing where I read that I'm like, oh my God, have to have this dragon. One, it has no breath weapon, which is fascinating, but it gets sneak attack. And a dragon with sneak attack is horrifying. The other aspect of this thing I really like that would really be fun at the table is, again, something from older editions, but its bite does con damage. And so that can really mess with your party members, even if it just does a quick snip and then backing away to lower a player's hit points. I mean, that can really mess with how a party's going to function.
Yeah, so in third edition, it deals just straight constitution damage. In second edition, it deals damage to max hit points.
Oh.
Specifically. And the ruling behind it is that if the afflicted character is able to slay the dragon and either consume a portion of its flesh or come into direct contact with its gore or viscera, specifically blood or cranial fluids,
Yummy.
then it is able to regain their max hit points.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, that damage is permanent. And you had, I think it was 2 combat rounds per experience level of the drained PC.
Oh, damn.
So yeah, you were on a ticking clock.
Yes, very quickly.
Which meant that, yes, that dragon could absolutely chomp somebody and fly away. And now you are in a frantic rush to try and catch that dragon. Because if you're, say, an 8th level barbarian and you get chomped and you lose, say, 20 max hit points on this bite, and this dragon flies away, you have 16 combat rounds to kill that dragon, or that HP damage is permanent.
Yeah. And again, this is going to be attacking from cover. It's going to be misty or foggy. So your perception checks are probably going to be, at a negative roll or a disadvantage, or, again, taking like a -1 or 2. It's not going to be clear combat. This is definitely something that's going to attack from the mist, from the shadows. It's not going to just drop in the middle of your party and give combat.
Right, but it is definitely a dragon that is going to rely on melee combat.
Yes.
Because they know they have an advantage.
Yeah.
One of their inherent abilities that they have is they have an improved trip attack. They can trip creatures with their tail.
Yeah.
And so they will take advantage that way. In older editions where the size of your damage dice are determined by the size category of the creature, Fang dragons were counted as being one size category larger than they were for their damage dice.
Yeah.
And that is specifically because they are covered in spines and horns and bony protrusions. According to what I was able to find, they were first presented in Dragon Magazine issue 134.
Okay.
And the first module that they were included in puts them in the ruined city of Mithranor in Faerun, which is sort of this kind of like Atlantis sort of city. It used to be this big bustling center of civilization, and where it was located was on a thin place between the Vales, so it was very easy to open portals here. So there was a portal network to basically the entire cosmos. I'm pretty sure that there was a portal that led from here to somewhere in Greyhawk. So this is a way to connect Faerun and Greyhawk.
Oh, okay.
But there is confirmed a portal between Faerun and Kryn, which is the Dragonlance setting.
Yes.
Here in Mithranor.
Okay. To put this to 5th edition, I'd almost want to put a portal to Sigil.
Yeah, there probably would be.
Yeah.
But Mithranor, it was Cormanthor originally, and it became Mithranor after it fell. Basically, a portal got opened to the abyss, and they couldn't close it.
Oops.
And so it got overrun with demons. And so the in-world lore suggests that Fang dragons are the result of some sort of demonic influence over the dragons that happen to be in the area.
Oh, I mean, that would be interesting. I wouldn't say that necessarily makes sense, but that does create a good story. And I kind of like that. So they're like a corrupted dragon.
A little bit. But it's interesting because by default, their alignment is chaotic neutral. They're not evil.
So with that, I wonder if they were like, you take your Mercury dragon and you give it a demonic influence, and they are pulling their alignment with their influence. So I could see a Mercury dragon almost becoming one of these gray dragons over time with this corruption.
So this is according to what I was reading. In 1st and 2nd edition, initially, Fang dragons are just Fang dragons. There are no gray dragons yet.
Okay.
Gray dragons show up in 3rd edition in a module in 3.5, I believe it was, where basically Tiamat corrupts a clutch of Fang dragon eggs.
Okay.
And as part of this, it shifts their alignment from chaotic neutral to chaotic evil, and it also gives them a breath weapon.
Ooh.
So gray dragons actually have an acid breath weapon.
Okay.
And so following that particular corruption, this initial clutch, their mandate, their dictate from Tiamat is to go and hunt down all of the remaining Fang dragons so that they and their progeny are the only Fang dragons that survive, basically. She's
Gotcha.
basically trying to shift the entire subspecies.
Okay. Now, see, story wise, I don't like the acid breath. If you were going to give them a breath weapon, especially with that con damage, I kind of envision these like Komodo dragons, again, where they bite and kind of sit back and wait for their prey to get sick and then collapse. And so I would go poison personally if I gave them a breath weapon at all. And
Yeah,
again,
that would make sense. I agree.
and I think especially with the Fang Dragons, one thing I would like to see at a table or how I would run it would posture since they don't have a breath weapon. They absolutely would posture like they were going to breathe a breath weapon and then use like their trip with their tail or something like that. But they would do something big and flashy to get the party ready and then come with something sideways.
Yeah. And another thing that I would do is because of how spiny they are, I would straight up have them reflect damage on melee attacks that are made within 5 feet.
Okay, yeah. I
So
can
if
see
you're
that.
attacking them with a melee weapon that doesn't have reach, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually land that attack without impaling yourself.
Yeah, so it'd be like a Blizzard's Thorn stat almost
Yeah,
for those that play Blizzard games. Yeah, so melee attackers take damage in return.
yes, because they are covered in these bony plates. So you would have to get in close to find the cracks, to find the soft spots between those plates. And
Yeah.
getting in there is going to be difficult and uncomfortable.
Yeah, it'll be difficult. And even if you don't injure yourself, like thrusting or slashing, just the dragon moving and twisting around you, trying to get at you,
Oh, yeah.
you're going to pick up some scrapes or pokes.
Yeah, that dragon is not going to just stand still and let you poke it. So one of the other details that I found in this second edition entry, which was really interesting, is that their fangs, when powdered, were one of the key ingredients for crafting certain magic weapons. Specifically mentioned were +2 swords and the 9 lives stealer, which is a special +2 longsword that has 1d8 +1 charges, and if you hit a creature that has less than 100 hit points, it has to succeed on a con save or it just automatically dies.
That is one thing I miss about second edition. Second edition very much had that whole monster hunter kind of mechanic and feel
Oh,
to it.
yes. And the last couple little bits that I wanted to touch on were that Fang Dragons also possess the ability to perfectly mimic any voice they've heard before.
Ooh, nice.
So yeah, combining that with your point that they like living in places that are, kind of foggy, kind of obscured vision, where they can hide out and be obscured, using that mimicry to lure adventurers in or to split up adventuring parties would absolutely be something that they would do.
Yes.
And the last detail that I saw was that they actually have a second smaller set of claws that are capable of like wearing rings and wielding wands and light weapons like daggers.
Ooh,
And
okay.
because they have that mimicry ability, they're actually able to read spell scrolls and activate magic items.
Nice.
So
Yeah, that would be terrifying.
yeah, imagine, having an adventure where you're having to go and find all of the pieces of the Rod of Seven Parts,
Yes.
and a Fang Dragon has one of them.
Oh, that would be terrifying. Yes. I
Yeah.
could also see like you're going with that and you're trying to find like a druid's grove or a cleric of some sort. And this is just like singing hymns to draw the party in.
Yeah, I could see that happening too. Yes, especially if one of the party members knows the person that they're going after. Say you have a cleric and the notable NPC happens to be like their mentor or something.
Oh god, yeah.
So they know what they sound like.
Oh,
And so,
that's
of
wild. I love it.
course, I recognize that voice.
Yeah. Mom?
Yeah. Okay. So next up on the roster are the other dragons that I really wanted to have in here, the steel dragons.
These are fun.
Yeah, these are a lot of fun. They're another of the technically metallic dragons. They default to lawful neutral, but many of them are lawful good. And they love living in cities and having human and humanoid companions. They often pose as like sages and scholars and other intellectuals. They are very advanced in spellcraft, so lots of them are wizards, or at least present as wizards.
These are giant dragon puppies.
Yeah, these are silver dragons taken up a notch.
Yes.
Because they love to eat human food, but unlike silver dragons, they have to actually eat enough food to maintain their true form's bulk.
That's a lot of dumplings.
That is a lot of dumplings. And so once or twice a month, they actually leave the city under whatever guise they have to get out, and they will go hunting. And so they will basically gorge themselves for a couple of days, and then they'll come back and live their normal lives for another couple weeks before they head back out.
They have a cheat weekend.
Yes. And as you might gather from that particular tidbit, they have humanoid forms and they prefer to remain in their humanoid forms whenever possible. But you can always sort of tell a steel dragon because they always have some aspect of their physical appearance that is steel in color, whether it's their hair or their eyes or their fingernails. I would think it would be really cool to have someone with like chrome teeth.
Oh yes, like Jaws from the old Moonraker James Bond film.
Yeah, or like
like a hip hop girl, like Platinum.
I'm drawing a blank on his name. Plays Magic the Gathering. I'm going to end up just blurting it out.
Yeah.
In here in a few minutes.
Tonight, yeah.
But yeah, he's got all the facial tattoos and stuff.
No clue.
Okay, yeah. Post Malone. There we go.
Post
Malone.
Okay. He plays Magic the Gathering?
Oh yes. He is the owner of the one of one serialized One Ring.
Oh.
And he spent like $5 million to get it.
Oh. Well done
him. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Post Malone, he's been on several actual play shows.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he is big into Magic the Gathering.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure they actually released a Post Malone Secret Lair product at one point a few years ago. Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Rabbit Trails? No.
Yeah. So having one of these personas of this steel dragon, just having the steel teeth, I just think that would be a really cool, evocative image to use.
Yeah. That, like I said, steel eyes, steel nails, again, depending on the person, would fit really well. Even having like a metallic sheen to their skin could work. And you wouldn't want to go, unless they were trying to pass themselves off as a Warforged, and so they're doing it that way. Could be kind of interesting also.
Right. Yeah. The other image that is just screaming out to me is like this powerful matron figure with this long braid of steel gray hair.
Now you say that, and immediately I think the witch from Spirited Away.
I don't. Have I watched Spirited Away? I think I've watched Spirited Away. If I have, it's been a very long time.
It's been a very long time. And she is not by any means a good character. But again, kind of that matron of like, that's a bathhouse, but I could see it as being like a restaurant or something like that. And yeah, definitely having that long shock of steel hair would fit really well.
Oh, I am definitely seeing her as like the madame of a brothel.
Okay, yeah, that would totally fit.
And this is one of those. This is the ethical brothel.
The ethical brothel, okay.
Yeah, this is the one where all of the girls are paid adequately and they're paid fairly and they're all taken care of and they all have health care and
like Dolly Parton, the best little whorehouse in Texas.
Kind of, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Because they are lawful neutral tending towards lawful good. That is the sort of establishment that I think she would run.
I want a Dolly Parton steel dragon now.
So that now we have to figure out what type of dragon Jolene is.
Oh.
Probably a copper.
Maybe, yeah.
Just because of the auburn hair?
Maybe. Oh, I'll have to give that some thought. Because again, I would think... No. I would think green.
She's a rust dragon.
Oh, yes. Okay.
We're going to get to rust dragons when we start talking about the planar dragons, because there's a whole slew of them. That's going to take like 3 episodes in and of itself. But yes, we have mentioned rust dragons before when we were talking about Acheron. But I think Jolene would have to be a rust dragon if Dolly is a steel dragon.
I love it. Yeah. Now, see, this needs to go on TikTok.
Maybe I'll get around to that. So one of the things that steel dragons are noted for is that they hate breaking the charade. They hate revealing themselves as dragons. And so if you make them reveal themselves as a dragon, you are in for a really bad time.
Yeah.
So whenever they are forced into melee combat, they start off by using their breath weapon. Their breath weapon is really nasty. It is a cube of toxic gas.
Oh,
They can modulate the size of it from anywhere from as small as they want up to the maximum size per side for their size category, which would be for a great worm, a 70-foot cube.
that's a lot of space.
It is, especially since in second edition, it was a save at a -2 penalty or die.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll pass.
It gets better. It was a contact poison.
Oh,
So even
damn.
if you're holding your breath, if you have exposed skin, you still make that saving throw at a -2 and you still die if you fail.
So many players died in second edition. Everybody died.
And the interesting thing about it is you could cover your exposed skin with lard or grease to remove that -2 penalty.
Interesting.
Yeah, basically, you put the lotion on your skin or you get the hose again.
Fair. Yeah.
And in third edition, they did give them a second breath weapon, which was a line of acid that dealt con damage.
Again, I love stat damage for a dragon. It fits. Dragons deserve stat damage attacks.
Yeah. So if you got hit with their acid breath weapon, you would immediately make a con save. And if you failed, you take 1d4 plus 1 point per age category
Oh.
con damage.
Oh.
So as a hatchling, it's 1d4 plus 1. As a great worm, it's 1d4 plus 12.
Yeah, that's going to kill most characters because most
And
people
then-
use con as a dump.
And then you make a second save after 1 minute.
Oh, God.
And
Wow,
if you fail, you get that a second time.
that is brutal.
Oh yeah, steel dragons were not messing around.
No.
And to top it all off, they're immune to all poisons.
As they should be.
As they should be, yes.
Don't interrupt their dinner. Don't make them show their true form. But again, they like people. These are giant puppies. They're generally going to be happy-go-lucky. Don't mess with their village. Don't be murder hobos, and you should be fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Their peeves are people who disrupt the peace of their city or despoil the wilderness of their hunting grounds.
Yeah.
If you come into their city and cause trouble, they will go full Batman on you.
Now, see, again, talking about other things, the Steel Dragon would be perfect for Old Gods of Appalachia. Would be absolutely perfect. Especially a lot where like you have a bunch of the rail companies coming in or a lot of the industrial places starting to set up, a lot of the oil refineries, places like DuPont. Steel Dragon would be absolutely fitting, just beautiful to stick in there.
Yeah. And it is pointed out that if you are caught despoiling their hunting grounds, they are notably less diplomatic about it.
Oh, they take it personally.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, I could see this like you have a village and because they do consume a lot of food because they have to, keep things up where people go and like they just say, hey, and it could be the old woman that lives up the hill and everyone like on their way to work just brings her a sandwich or some biscuits and just kind of leaves them on her doorstep as a tip of the hat and they go on and that's where she gets a lot or they get a lot of their food from and then they can still go out and hunt too but they become like these centers of town because they do so much for the town anyway and people just kind of give to kind of balance that in whatever way they can.
So I'm reminded of a Shel Silverstein poem right now.
Okay.
Tell you of tiny Melinda May who ate a monstrous whale. She thought she could, she said she would, so she started it right at the tail. And everyone said, you're much too small, but that didn't bother Melinda at all. So she took little bites and she chewed very slow, just like a good girl should. And in 89 years, she ate a whale because she said she could.
I like it. That fits perfect.
So one of these lives in a whaling village.
Oh, yes.
And so the whalers harpoon the whale, they haul it in, they carve off the blubber, and they pull out the ambergris, the parts that are
industrial.
Yeah, well, the parts that have mercantile value.
Yeah.
And then they give the rest of the carcass to the dragon.
That would fit really well as well, yes.
Because there's a lot on that whale that they're not going to use.
Yeah.
And rather than let it go to waste, they just bring it to the dragon. And
I
now
like
that
it.
dragon doesn't actually have to go and hunt
Right.
because they're bringing them 4 or 5 whales a month. That is absolutely enough to feed a dragon.
This would be perfect for your pirate campaigns.
Oh,
And she is
yes.
the matron of a harbor. Or he,
Mm-hmm.
she, it, they are a matron or
She's the
patron
harbor
of a harbor.
mistress. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There we
Okay.
go.
Now we've got our
There we
story mode.
go.
Yes.
Okay. So we got 4 dragons left on the list, but I've got them sort of combined into 2 pairings because there are a lot of similarities
Yes.
between the two. The first pairing are the brown and yellow dragons. They're both found in deserts. The brown dragons are far more common than yellow dragons, and the yellows tend to dwell in the more inhospitable areas. They're going to be in the full-on sandy deserts,
Yes.
whereas the brown dragons are just going to be in deserts in general. So brown dragons were wingless in 2nd edition. In 3rd edition, they have these stumpy little wings that they can't use to fly, but they do still have vestigial wings. And they have an acid breath. But in 3rd edition, they were reskinned as landworms.
Okay.
And so there were actually 8 different variants created in 3rd edition for 8 different terrain types. And the desert landworms are the brown dragons.
Okay.
And so all of the other ones, like there's a tundra and a plains and a mountain and an underdark and a swamp, I think, and a forest and a jungle, I think are the other 2.
Perhaps.
But the 8 major biomes that you would run into in most D&D games, there is a landworm for that terrain.
Yeah.
In 2nd edition, the brown dragons had tremor sense out to 500 feet, and they can move silently without disturbing the ground with their burrow speed. So they're basically boulettes on steroids.
Yeah. One thing with the brown dragons that I really enjoyed too, and I think this was in 3rd edition, is aside from their breath weapon and their regular abilities, they also had some magical abilities and slightly to control wind and air vortexes. And so they could create dust devils and sandstorms, which I always thought, in a desert, and having the whole, what is the maboobs, the giant sandstorms, like in the end of Dune,
Yeah.
that would definitely be something for a greater worm. But yeah, these, again, I love my desert creatures. I miss my desert home. These critters kind of speak to me a bit.
Yeah, so they are intelligent, they are capable of speech, but generally they don't talk to people because they think it is weird to talk to your food.
That's right.
And their favorite food of everything is horse.
Of course, of course.
And so while they are perfectly willing to use their acid breath on people, if there is a chance that they will hit that horse with their acid breath, they won't use it. Straight up, they will not use it. They don't want to hurt the horse because they want to eat the horse.
The horse is good eating.
Yeah.
The other thing with these dragons that I think are really interesting is they're considered omnivorous, but also lithovivorous. So they actually eat certain types of rock and mineral.
Yeah, and that is something that you see a lot with, especially the metallic dragons. The metallic dragons are very, very frequently will eat ores or gemstones. The gem dragons as well.
But for one of these, like these browns or these yellows, these absolutely would be laying like on a caravan path. They would raid it, they would stalk it. I don't know if they would be intelligent enough to let some pass so people still come through on occasion.
So,
but maybe. Go ahead.
So in 3rd edition specifically, you can negotiate with them.
Yeah.
They are far less strict on they don't talk to their food sort of aspect that you had in 2nd edition. So it would absolutely be a thing where if you are taking a caravan through this area and you know that there's going to be a brown dragon there, you specifically bring like 2 or 3 horses with you specifically as an offering to the dragon to let you pass.
Ooh, I like that.
Because they are food motivated, and if you appeal to them and if you offer them a gift, they will accept it and they will allow you to negotiate.
I like that. The other thing I could think of is if like your party's doing like a raiding type venue or something like that, negotiating with them to let you pass because there's a cavalry coming after you up behind, and you could wipe out your entire enemy's cavalry with a single dragon.
Yeah, that would be an interesting way to go about it too. Yeah. So now talking about yellow dragons are even more isolationist than brown dragons are. Brown dragons, they will hole up in the desert. They often come into conflict with blue dragons because they live in the
Desert.
same sort of places. And because
Blue dragons
they
are kind of assholes.
well, because blue dragons can fly, they are more visibly assholes than brown dragons are.
Fair.
And so the denizens of the desert tend to view the brown dragons as a little bit less evil than the blue dragons.
Reasonable.
But yellow dragons are even worse assholes than blue dragons are.
Yeah.
So one thing that I really like about them is that they hunt like ant lions. So they will dig like a cone-shaped pit in the sand, and they will settle themselves in the bottom of it with just their eyes and their nose poking out. And when something comes along that ends up breaching the lip of this cone, they will use their wings to destabilize the sand and force that thing to slide down the dune into their mouth. So yellow dragons have a breath weapon that is essentially the hot wind of the desert condensed, so that it deals fire damage and it blasts sand.
Ooh.
So it has a piercing damage element to it,
Okay.
and it has a chance to blind creatures that it hits with it.
Yeah. Again, I've been in a sandstorm or two. I can definitely see how that could happen.
And so they are immune to fire.
Understandably.
And one of the really interesting things is that they have the ability to at will cast silence in a 10-foot radius.
Ooh, I like that.
So yeah, this is why the person that you were walking along with just disappeared.
Yeah.
They slipped, and at the time that they slipped, that yellow dragon cast silence. So you didn't hear them go, ah, as they start tumbling down the hill.
I'm saying a 10-foot radius, that's about the size of a caravan wagon. And so this could just like be chomping on the way back, like a line of enemies, clump, 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 and just like slowly picking away at your line of people. Yeah, no, that would fit really well.
And while they are capable of eating basically anything, their favorite meals are humanoids and brass dragon eggs.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's yellow dragons. I don't know that yellow dragons actually made any appearances past second edition. They might be in third edition somewhere. I haven't found the book that they're in yet.
I don't recall hearing about a yellow dragon at any point.
Yeah, so I think they may, because they were supposedly super rare to begin with in second edition.
Gotcha.
All right, and then the last pair of dragons that we're going to talk about are cloud dragons, which were changed to storm drakes in third edition, and mist dragons.
Nice.
Both of these are very similar in their styling and their abilities. They're both patterned after Asiatic dragons, so they're the cloud serpent sort of dragons.
Okay.
So they're wingless, but they can still fly. They're both sort of aloof dragons that just want to be left alone.
Okay. I mean, fair.
They're both capable of dispersing into cloud forms, like the spell gaseous form, where you basically just turn into a cloud and you get to fly around. And while in their cloud forms, you got a 75% chance of not being able to tell that that's a dragon and it just looks like a cloud.
Nice.
They're both capable of using all of their non-physical abilities, with the exception of their breath weapons, while in their cloud form. So they all have innate spell casting and they all have innate spell-like abilities. And they can use their magic while they are a cloud.
That's going to be brutal.
They both share the preferred combat strategy of using their breath weapon, which in both cases are cloud-like. So it's a freezing cloud for cloud dragons. It's a steam cloud for mist dragons. And then immediately following using their breath weapon, they turn into their gaseous form and either fly away or harass their foes with magic until they run away.
Gotcha. Yeah, so again, these sound like they don't really want to fight unless necessary. Again, that solitary reclusiveness, that makes sense. And again, that would fit, I think, I don't know a lot about Asiatic dragons. I know a little bit. And that does kind of fit that theme of them as well. As Asiatic dragons are not generally combative, I want to say. They're almost like elements of nature itself.
Yeah, I don't know that I have heard or read any stories that are specifically about a hero going and fighting a dragon from an Asian standpoint.
Yeah.
Dragons, from my very limited reading into Asiatic mythologies, dragons seem to be more like physical aspects of certain ideals and wisdoms.
Yes. The other thing that I recall from when I did my monsters and art class, they tend to be auspicious. So they tend, again, to bring good luck, but they also tend to be guides between physical and spiritual type realms. So again, these would absolutely be good for like phase shifting or planar scape. Like if you needed to find a plane, you'd probably want to find one of these dragons and they could tell you where to go or how to get there, I would imagine.
So cloud dragons would absolutely be able to take you to the plane of air.
Yes.
Mist dragons would absolutely be able to take you to, say, the plane of water.
Yeah.
But getting them to do that for you would be a chore.
Yeah. So again, these dragons are going to be quest locations or founts of knowledge, less a flying block of XP.
Yeah. These are MacGuffin points.
Yeah, these really are
in
MacGuffin
your
points.
story.
Yeah.
So cloud dragons tend to live at high elevations, as the name suggests. As with certain silver dragons, they tend to lair literally in the clouds. They are neutral by default, and they have a listed disdain for any creature incapable of flight without devices or spells.
I can see that. You're cheating. What's the thing? Look at all the technology you have to use to be as good as me or something like that.
Look what they must do to imitate a fraction of our power.
Yes.
Yeah. So cloud dragons are immune to cold damage, and their breath weapon is a line of freezing cloud. And it's
That
pretty
sounds miserable.
big. It's pretty big in second edition. I think it's like 30 by 30 by 140 feet.
Holy damn.
Yeah, it's a big cloud. And so any creature that's in line with that also gets blasted ass over tea kettle, forced movement, 2d12 plus their age category feat.
Nice.
And there's like certain caveats, like if you can grab hold of a sturdy object, you get a bonus on the save, or if it's quadrupedal and it has like claws that it can dig in, it gets an advantage on the save. But yeah, and that's the only breath weapon that they actually have.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
That is plenty.
But it also has access to spells like Control Lightning or Ice Storm. And it says it likes to harass flying opponents with things like Control Winds and Stinking Cloud.
Nice. And I mean, it would make sense to have a lot of those atmospheric type spells. And again, these would be seen as near deities, if not deities, by a lot of mortal folk, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably. And it would definitely be one of those, like the old man on the mountain, the guru on the mountain sort of deals, where you would be going on a pilgrimage trying to find them.
Yes. The other thing I could see with these is these absolutely would make a great warlock patron.
Yeah, I can see that. Just reskin a Pact of the Jinn.
Yep.
Because, having that air elemental sort of bond with it, I think, that would tie in really well. Now, with mist dragons, they prefer to live in areas with permanent mist, so places like rainforests. They would absolutely live in the Cascades.
Yes.
But they also like living in places like the base of waterfalls.
Okay.
And their preferred layers tend to be like the cave that's behind the waterfall or some natural grotto or some place like that. And all they want out of life is to be left alone to philosophize and contemplate existence.
I like them.
That's all they want.
Yeah.
They are the Buddha.
Yes. I just want to chill under my lotus tree. It wasn't a Bodhi tree. That's what it was, a Bodhi tree. Yeah.
So because they are mist dragons, they are immune to fire damage.
Understandable.
And their breath weapon is steam. So it is a cloud that deals fire damage.
Oh. Steam burns suck. I don't know if you've ever had an actual steam burn before.
Yes.
They are unpleasant.
They are. They are thoroughly unpleasant. But this breath weapon gets more unpleasant because after the initial hot blast of steam, it cools and it congeals into a smothering fog
Ew.
that blinds creatures and makes them start drowning.
Oh, dear God. Holy crap. Don't
Um,
piss these things off. Just leave them alone.
and so in third edition, they actually got a second breath weapon, which was an acidic slime,
Okay.
which if you got hit with it, you had to succeed on a fort save, so a con save, or you would be sickened for 1d6 rounds plus 1 for each age category. So think of like the poisoned condition where you're rolling everything at disadvantage.
The only thing I can think of thematically is like they have, instead of like a thickened slime, it's literally like spores of black mold.
Yeah, that could work, but I'm thinking it's like visually, it's more along the lines of like pond scum.
Okay.
It's like that algal bloom, that
Okay.
algae
Yeah, I can see
bloom.
that. Yeah, I can see that. That feels
Um,
more like liquid than mist or steam. But yeah, no, I could see that
yeah,
because
but
that's going to be in that type of environment.
yeah. So their preferred territories tend to bring them in close proximity to either green or bronze dragons. Or topaz dragons, I guess, because we have established that from our
Yeah.
Gem Dragon episode. And the way that they interact with them are very different. So green dragons, because green dragons can rarely leave well enough alone, the green dragons will often try to intimidate or dominate these mist dragons, and the mist dragons will just ignore them until they get irritated enough. And then they will just go full postal on this green
Nice.
dragon.
Nice.
They will straight up cloud form into their lair and just wreak havoc on them in their own house.
Oh, nice. That's a special kind of fuck you. I love it.
Bronze dragons, on the other hand, they tend to get along just fine because both mist dragons and bronze dragons just want to be left alone.
Yeah. They'll probably sit and have some tea, do some talking, share some ideas.
They'll wave at each other from across the cove.
Yeah.
It's like that scene from Forrest Gump where Forrest Gump is standing on the dock waving at Lieutenant Dan on his shrimp boat.
Yep.
Yeah, that's absolutely the sort
Yeah.
of relationship that this mist dragon and the bronze dragon are going to have with one another.
Share stories about pissing off the green.
Yeah.
I like it.
But that's basically what I got for
Yeah,
today.
no, that's good. I mean, again, a lot of fun stuff. I think these lesser known dragons, again, can be fun things to throw at the table, especially if your party's like expecting a dragon. Like, hey, we might see a dragon next week, and they're like, oh, dragon. And then it's not the dragon they're expecting, but it's still a dragon. Like I said, it kind of breaks that monotony of just, okay, everybody knows what to expect.
Yeah. And going back to that steel dragon, having the brothel mistress.
Yes.
And one thing that you would notice as you walk into the parlor of this brothel, you notice that all of the girls stay up on the second floor and they're at the railing ringing the balcony, right?
Okay.
And if you are especially astute in your perception, you'll notice that the foyer, this entry hall, is a perfect 30 by 30 by 30 cube.
Oh, nice. I love it.
So that if something untoward happens, if some ill-intended individuals happen to burst in through the front door and with the intent of causing mischief, well, there's going to be a 30 by 30 by 30 cube of savor dye toxic gas that's about to show up.
Yep. I like it. I really think Islafera needs a steel dragon.
Oh, it has to.
Yes.
It's the Iron Isle.
Exactly.
Isla Fera, yeah.
Yeah.
It has to have a steel dragon.
Yeah. And she might be running that port.
Yeah, I can see that. So there are going to be a few more episodes. We've been planning out some ideas. Definitely going to be doing one where we're talking about some of these dragons that have made it into 5th edition. So like the Moonstone Dragon, I know James is real keen on getting to the Moonstone Dragon.
I love the Moonstone Dragon.
I mean, they're cool. Don't get me wrong, they are cool. There's deep dragons, which are, native to the Underdark. 4th edition as purple dragons, and then they change back to deep dragons in 5th edition. Stuff like the Elderbrain dragon, which is new to 5th edition. The Sun and Moon dragons, which are from Spelljammer. So there's a whole bunch of stuff from 5th edition So that's going to all make one episode in and of itself. We've got one where we're going to be doing all of the different templates that you can put on dragons. So obvious one is Draco Liches, but there's also from older editions, you've got skeletal dragons and zombie dragons and ghost dragons and shadow dragons, and talking about vampire dragons and potentially doing mummy dragons. Because
Nice.
I'm pretty sure that there is, I don't think it's called a mummy dragon. I think it's got a special name, but I'm pretty sure in one of the, maybe in like Monster Manual 2 or the Fiend Folio, there is like a mummy dragon
Nice.
that we can talk about. And then, of course, you've got all of the different ones from the different planar dragons. So you've got all of the elemental drakes from all of the inner planes. You've got all of the different dragons from the different outer planes. I'm pretty sure all 16 of the outer planes, each one has a native dragon to it. There are some like the Oceanus dragon and the Styx dragon, which live in the River Oceanus and the River Styx, respectively, that cut through multiple planes. But you also have things like, I think it's the Howling Dragon that's from Pandemonium. You've got the Rust Dragons from Acheron. You've got the Battle Dragons from Isgard. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And like I said, those are probably going to take like 3 episodes in and of themselves just to get all of those taken care of.
Right.
So yeah, we've got a few dragon episodes left.
The Year of the Dragon.
Oh yeah. Is it the Year of the Dragon?
No, last year was.
I
just looked it up. I'm like, yeah, we missed it by a year. We're a little late.
Missed it. Oh well, that's okay. But yeah, so that'll do it for today. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or come join our Discord and tell us directly. You can find a link to our Discord at our website, undercommontaste.com, along with links to all of our social media, which I've started finally posting on TikTok again.
Huzzah!
We'll see how long that lasts this time around.
1 week later.
1 week later. And you can also find links there to our Patreon, patreon.com/undercommontaste, and our itch store, undercommontaste.itch.io.
Again, if this is your first time finding us, welcome. We're very happy you found us. You can find our other podcasts on your podcatcher of choice. Just search Under Common Taste. Also, you can join me on Tuesdays and Thursdays on twitch.tv/undercommontaste. On Tuesdays, I am still playing through Darkest Dungeon, and on Thursdays, I am playing the RPG classic Neverwinter Nights.
So for next episode, I think we are going to do something a little more in the homebrew camp. James brought this up whenever we were talking. Recently, John from Tale of the Manticore released a supplement to his game One Shot in the Dark with guidelines for building your own adventure modules or building your own levels for One Shot in the Dark.
Yeah, which is a great game.
It is. It's a whole lot of fun. It's really useful. I have actually used it for mapping out tunnels and such that my players end up going through. When you guys were fleeing the city in our home game,
okay,
I built that with One Shot in the Dark.
Very nice.
And so as sort of a way to show our appreciation for that particular game and for John as a creator, we're going to pick up a copy of the rule set for building your own module. And I think we are going to try and figure out how to build a module for One Shot in the Dark live and in person on our next episode. And probably once I get it put together, put it up on our Patreon. It'll probably be a free product because One Shot in the Dark is, I think it's either $2 or $1.50. And then this addition, this addendum, I think is 99 cents.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, because
we don't want to sell a free product.
Yeah, really. And it's one of those things where in order to really make enough to make it worth putting it on our itch page, it really needs to be at least about $3 for us.
Yeah.
And I cannot in good conscience sell a module that is an expansion for a game that costs more than the base game.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's what we're going to try and get to next time. So stay safe, everyone, and we will see you then.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Under Common Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Anne, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.